Welcome to the Thriving Misfits, the podcast where we celebrate resilience, embrace diversity, and challenge norms. I'm your host, Fiona Young, and we're excited to welcome Helen Corke, founder and CEO of Charlotte Frank and partner at the Elliott Scott Group. With nearly 2 decades of recruitment experience across Europe and Asia, Helen brings a wealth of diverse perspectives from living and working in multiple countries, and she's now based in Hong Kong. Specializing in hiring top business support, HR professionals, and C-suite level executives, Helen is also passionate advocate for diversity, equity, and inclusion in recruitment. Beyond her business expertise, Helen is deeply in tune with her instincts and intuition, having trained in Reiki, often letting her gut feeling guide her decision making. She incorporates this intuitive approach not only in business, but also when coaching C-suite executives, helping them navigate challenges with clarity and mindfulness. So join us as we explore Helen's unique blend of global insights, her commitment to DEI, and how she integrates intuition and energy healing into her leadership and coaching practices. Welcome, Helen.
Hi, thank you, Fiona, so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Yes, and we go way back, right? I've just looked at when we first met. That was in 2016 when we both went to the ICF, the International Coaching Federation, coaching training together in Hong Kong. 2016, amazing, 8 years.
Horrifying how fast time goes, isn't it? My goodness, feels like a lifetime ago.
And we learned so much during that training, right? It really transformed us as an individual, even though we wanted to help others, but actually we helped ourselves first through that training.
Well, that's always the funny thing, isn't it? I mean, a lot of the time when we do these trainings, we're doing them for ourselves first and foremost, and then through that initial self-learning and self-awareness, you can then help others. That's the great thing about it.
Yeah. And now that we're living in 2 different countries, I feel that we're still so connected. You are my soul sister. That's why we want to talk a little bit more about what you're doing in that intuition space. I think it's so important these days that we're much more in tune with our gut feeling, even in business. And I believe just talking to a lot of my clients recently, they're so much into energy healing. They even invite tarot card readers. I think now is really the time for the human consciousness, right?
It's so true. I think we're really complex. And I think in general, we really need to learn to bring together the holistic side and the professional side. And I think the thing that's changing right now, and I think we're all more and more aware of it, especially since COVID, is the importance of being our true, authentic selves in every way that we can.
Absolutely. Now, the listeners would like to get to know you a little bit better, Helen. So I'm going to kick it off with some rapid fire round questions. So you are trained in Reiki and you also practice it on a personal level, on a professional level. Have you ever wished you could give a difficult client or a candidate in recruitment an energetic reset with a quick hand wave?
All the time. Seriously. These things are so important, and it's such a funny thing, but of course you have to be very delicate about the professional line, if you will. And so some people might be open to these things, other people may never have even heard of it. So it is something that you have to be very consciously aware of. But in a short answer to your question, all the time.
Right. Now, in a job interview, have you ever had the urge to sense someone's energy before asking them about their qualifications? Like, how do you balance your gut feeling with facts and, results?
Yeah, it's a really important question, actually. I think one of the most important things that I have personally found through my journey with recruitment is the people have to come first. Who are they? What makes them tick? Human beings are, such individual, unique creatures, and it's really important as recruiters that we get to know that person. There's so many recruiters that just look at the CV. They don't really care about, not giving our, profession a bad rap. But I do think there's a lot of people that are simply looking at the CV instead of really considering the human being behind it. So I would like to think that in a situation where I'm meeting people and looking at their potential career options, the first thing I'm looking at is actually who they are. and what skills they have, and the details follow.
You know, it's really interesting because a lot of companies now, when they're doing recruitment, they're probably using AI as well because they feel that it's probably more unbiased, right? Yeah. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, it's a tricky one. There's a huge amount that's happening to try and fail-proof this, and I think it's a topic that is something that people are cautious about speaking about because I think there's a lot of diverse thoughts around it. Mm-hmm. I think if it's in the right hands, it can be extremely good. And that's what we can aim for. Best practices are important, making sure that, that these DEI topics are really considered on all areas, and AI obviously comes under that.
Right. Now, let's go back to your childhood, shall we? So can you tell us more about how you were raised? Were there any specific moments or people in your early years that sparked your passion for understanding people, diversity, and inclusion?
Yeah. And, everybody has, in coaching terms, what we describe as our life scripts. And they are just so incredibly powerful, and everybody has a different life script. They're not always positive, and they are always complex, irrespective of whether negative or positive life scripts. They're always complex and fascinating. And I think one of the things for me personally was I was extremely lucky to have the most extraordinary parents. My dad was somebody who was my inspiration. My mum, similarly, they were absolutely opposites. They were pure yin and yang, which is what made it so interesting. And my dad was enormously interested in people, from all over the world. We were very lucky that he took us on adventures with my mom, and we traveled around the world, and we got to meet different cultures and different people. And he was truly, and my mother similarly, absolutely fascinated and curious about the world and everyone in it. And so that for me was a real privilege, and I naturally kind of sparked my love of travel and lots of different cultures and people on the planet. So, it definitely changed the path of my life. And I think not many people are lucky enough to have that. So that's a part of my life script that I often am aware of and am deeply grateful of.
That's so wonderful. So actually, I see you probably don't even need to break that generational trauma, having such wonderful parents, and now you're parents of two little boys yourself. So these experiences with your parents, I guess, also influenced your decision to pursue that career in recruitment. Am I right?
Well, to be honest, I'm not sure I pursued a career in recruitment. It's as many people who end up in recruitment, they often come from very diverse backgrounds, which was one of the reasons why I fell in love with it. I was a singer-songwriter. Whenever people tell me, oh, what did you do? And I'm like, well, if I wrote a book, you wouldn't even believe me on this subject. But, I had many lives before I ended up in recruitment, and really it chose me. And it was through a great friend who had been to a recruitment agency. And frankly speaking, I didn't even know much about it. And when I was in my mid-20s, I fell in the door, having done 5 different jobs, trying to keep it going as a singer-songwriter in London, where I lived for nearly a decade. And I was like, look, this is me. I've done loads of stuff. I have no idea what I want to do. I was a real misfit in every sense, and I was like, I'm really good at loads of things, but, and I've done loads of different jobs simultaneously because I was really hardworking, but I've never really found the thing. And I think truly, in some ways, what my life script led me to be able to have the confidence and the no fear approach of doing was to lead an untraditional pathway and to have that confidence to truly try and find out who I was before I then met this tribe of people who I realized were just like me. There's a lot of great people in our industry who are genuinely fascinated by people. Of course, in every industry, I'm afraid to say, you always get the absolute opposite, and I often look at these things that are online sometimes and I'm like, oh God, it's awkward. But, the best of the recruiters are some of the most wonderful people that I've had the pleasure of knowing. And this energy, I never forget it. I walked into 55 Strand, which was my office in London. There was 400 of us in this huge office, and the energy, the passion, the interest in other people and trying to help them was, how can I put it? It was addictive, and also had this effect that left me feeling really excited. So I think I didn't choose it; it chose me, and it was actually having that gut intuition when I was in that meeting room, meeting all these people. I think I met 8 people back to back in one day, that I realized that it was not your average 9-to-5 sit at your desk job. It was very much based on having a kind of a similar purpose, in which was helping people. And that resonated very deeply with me.
So now that you have had so much experience in various roles and various jobs, I guess you as a recruiter can also appreciate candidates who have a very non-traditional CV, right? And we talked about AI and how we're going to be using AI to select candidates because we think it's much more unbiased. But if I look at my CV, it's just very non-traditional, even though I stayed within one company, but I jumped from finance to digital transformation to custom operations. My husband has started off in banking, then he went into SAP consulting, then he became an entrepreneur. And it's sometimes really difficult to explain to hiring managers and recruiters why we have such a career path. So I think what you've just mentioned, you can really appreciate that. And we're not necessarily job hopping, but I think it's more also like opportunity hopping, right?
Absolutely. And even deeper than that, it's finding yourself. I think it's a luxury to have that time in your early career to try and figure it out. It's not easy. It's really tough. And I was lucky to have had amazing support of my parents, where they were like, you'll get there. Whatever happens, we know you're going to be great. You're going to be fine, and you'll get there. Just trust your instinct. And my mom was very much the hippie, and my dad was very much the businessman. When I say hippie, that kind of sounds like derogatory in some sense sometimes, but it's absolutely the opposite. She was the one with the business sense. She was the one who managed the money in some ways. She was the one who had this strong intuition and instinctive know that Dad absolutely trusted, and it allowed them to work together as a true team. And it's wonderful. My dad's talent was very much creative, copywriting, visuals. He was a great, a great man for many reasons. But without Mum, it didn't work. So it was very fascinating. And this combination, it was also very important. It's another whole podcast. We could go there next time. But, about how when you're choosing your partner in life, it's really important to know who you are, and then choose someone that really does help complement you. And it allows that kind of freedom to still be your own trees, but to connect and grow together, but still connect for our own personal growth. Yeah.
Wow, that's so wonderful.
I'm not answering it very concisely, but I think you know what I mean.
Now, let's look at the workplace, because you're supporting a lot of organizations and leaders. So as someone, you are clearly blending intuition with also business strategy. So how do you balance data-driven decisions with also your gut instincts when hiring for roles or even coaching your clients?
Yeah, this is this in some ways comes back to the whole AI question, which I kind of skirted around when you first brought it up, because it's very difficult for me as a boutique recruitment mindset to kind of get on board with all these new AI things, because, you know, truly I'm very old school, and I feel like the AI is going to miss that special someone that you know didn't have that traditional CV. So I think trying to balance this is really the trickiest thing. And you know, I was thinking about this before. I was like, you know, you can't establish diversity through discrimination, right? You just can't. And this is a big thing at the moment. It needs to be handled really delicately. And I feel like sometimes with all the data-driven stuff that the HR guys get given, it's like, right, well, we have to now make sure we're completely diverse. But if you're discriminating against one pool of candidates because, you know, that area is full, you know, it's a minefield. And I think it's very difficult for people to get it 100% right. But I do think that you have to use common sense, as well as making sure you're balancing all of the correct kind of diversity points and being aware of them, along with, you know, making sure that what's best for the business as well. And it's a really delicate position to get right. Does that
Yeah, I mean, I resonate with that, because I was also a hiring manager in Shell, and yes, we do look at the CVs. We go through several rounds of interviews. We also keep ourselves really mindful of our biases. We get, you know, trained up before even having those interviews. We get a refresher from HR about our potential biases or unconscious biases that we may have. Yeah. And then we have the conversation with candidates, asking them questions, asking them to look at case studies and respond to those accordingly. And I think it's, like you said, it's really that balance. And for me, having to hire team leaders, in fact, not only frontliners, that was even much more of a responsibility, right? Because they would have to support at least 10 team members each. Yeah. So for me, I felt like, and I don't know whether it's a talent or a skill, but it's really about trusting my gut feeling. And I hired 2 individuals who've never had leadership experience from a completely different division. And the team really flourished in their leadership. And that's why I would say it's really that balance, but to kind of nail it down, to give you a recipe how that works is sometimes really tough, huh?
Really, really hard. But you have to, you know, the other thing I was going to say is it's really true. You have to have the skills to back up the desire, right? That is absolutely true. You must have the skills to back up your desire and your visions and what you want to do as a candidate. But, you know, ultimately, as the hiring manager, you know, if you can see that spark in someone's eyes, and, you know, in what you know that they could achieve, you know, it's very, I've met so many thousands of people. You meet people and you know they've got what I describe as the X factor. They might not have the perfect CV, right? They may not have it, but they've had an interesting journey to get to a point where they have life experience, perhaps. And I think this is what comes back to that initial thing that we were talking about. You know, your life experience is valuable. You know, it might not look great on the CV, but as long as you can explain what you learned during that period of time in a way that comes across as valuable, because it is valuable, then I think the hiring managers should be open-minded to understanding that. And of course, other gaps in the CVs that we see as hiring managers are, of course, when you're going off for maternity leave, you know, and that's another whole podcast. You know, how do we deal with that? And how do we prepare as candidates who have had an untraditional background to give our very best in the interviews, and to ensure that we get across to the hiring managers the fact that not only do we have the desire, but we have actually gone ahead and got the skills to back it up.
Is this also something that you have conversations with leaders who are looking to hire, how to support them in trusting their gut feeling, and also making sure that because ultimately it's, having a non-traditional CV or career path, we're like misfits, right? So are you trying to also encourage leaders to hire the misfits?
Definitely. And it's really funny because, there was always a bit of a joke when I started the business that, everybody that I hired had what I would describe as an untraditional, very interesting CV, and I actually hired them because I loved that about them. It's one of the reasons that I chose them, because I felt that a lot of employers do not give people the chance. And if I could see something in them, that is what gave me, one of the earliest things when I was building the company that gave me such joy, was knowing that I was kind of putting them back on the path, and that I was able to be in that privileged position of giving them an opportunity, a platform to really prove themselves to themselves and to those around them, and to be a really important part of the business. And I saw that time after time work well. And, that really was one of the highlights of my career, is being able to do for me what I had done. Treat others as you wish to be treated, right? It's one of the big DEI statements. And, and that was, for me, a personal joy and a motivator behind having the autonomy with my own business.
Wow. Now, a lot of the listeners, they feel and identify as a misfit. They don't feel that they belong. So for those who feel out of place or like they don't belong, what are some of the practical steps they can take to find a work environment that celebrates their uniqueness? Is there anything that they can do deliberately?
It's, again, great questions. This is something which I really believe strongly is work that they could do on themselves. This is about their own self-awareness, their own self-confidence, and really believing in the fact that what makes them unique is also what makes them brilliant and different. This is what makes them special. And so not to be in any way concerned about it. Don't let fear enter into the mindset at all, but look for what in other businesses makes you, helps you find the joy. I mean, it's something that is a bit of a buzzword at the moment. If it doesn't give you joy, then don't do it. But it is true. And I think you need to find something where you feel at home, where you feel comfortable, but where you also have the same purpose and the goal is aligned with those around you. I think when businesses hire, one of the things I've always personally done myself is I like to think of them as a pack. When I'm hiring, I like to think of it as you need a hand of cards. So you need the ace, you need the diamond, you need the club, you need the spade. I think everyone needs a joker because, hey, and I think if you hire with this mentality of every suit has a different strength and is invaluable to the business, I don't think you could go wrong. And it also makes for a much, much better environment to work in as a whole. So I think that I always think of myself as the joker, which is funny actually, because when you think about it like that, it's like, for me, it was like, I like to think that actually that's the special sauce, and I think if the misfits out there are hearing this, I want you just to remember that, the most important thing about you is exactly that. So don't worry about it. I think embrace it, love it, accept it, and then find a business where you'll be loved for exactly who you are.
And I hope we can get more workplaces to be that inclusive, to create that sense of belonging. Yeah. Now, you and we connect on not only, I would say mental level, the love of coaching others, but also on a spiritual level. And, I do believe that, and we talked about it so often already, it's that time for humanity to become much more self-conscious and conscious in general. Is there any practical tip that you can share with individuals who are looking to strengthen their intuition for their personal lives or even in their professional lives?
Well, I think, and I say this, and as I say it, I'm laughing because I need to do it more myself. So I think it's important to find time for meditation and to just try and slow down. It's so difficult in today's fast-paced world. You're just like on a treadmill. Every one of us, is kind of on a mission. But I think if we just take that moment to slow down and to really connect with ourselves, with source, and to really have that time, even if you don't have the money to have a coach, tip, I would say this, do it where you feel comfortable. If you're walking on a run, do a video with yourself. As coaches, what we do is we really hold the space still for somebody whom we're coaching to really have 1 hour for themselves in a week where they probably rarely ever dedicate 1 whole hour to themselves and listening to themselves and helping to co-create in that space with them ways to move forward, to grow, etc. So if you cannot afford to have your own coach and you're at that point in your life where you do, you really listen to yourself, be your own guide, be your own coach, ask yourself the difficult questions, video it, and then watch it back. It's a bit awkward to begin with. And yes, I have done this myself. But, it's really cathartic. And I think people underestimate their own ability. And I think what I would say is, bring that back to you. You know what's best for you. You have the answers. You have to believe in yourself. Believe that you can do this. Don't let fear get in the way of personal growth. And I think this is one of the things you'll see loads of YouTubers doing it or whatever, influencers. But I think it's really, really powerful to listen to yourself for an hour every week. Just make yourself do it and say, what do I want? What is the worst case scenario? What if I did this? What would the repercussions be? What was important to me and why? What was the standouts of my week this week? What have I learned from them? Really make yourself go through that. What I remember from trying to find my time was I didn't have any money. And, I was working 5 jobs. And one of those jobs was actually as a receptionist. It was my night shift job. It was as a receptionist at Clapham Common Clinic. It doesn't exist anymore, sadly. But, sometimes when I got into recruitment, I would still pick up the phone and go, Clapham Common Clinic, because I had done it for so many years in the evening to get enough money together. And I think one of these things that beautiful little business taught me was actually the alternative medicines, the alternative therapies. We had coaches, we had homeopathy practitioners who were amazing. We had cranial sacral osteopaths. We had, aromatherapists. We had Bowen technique and Alexandra technique and Reiki. That's where I learned Reiki all those years ago, and Reiki master. So, top tips would be believe in yourself. This is what my life script gave me, the confidence to know whatever happened, I was going to make it. And you can borrow other people's life scripts. That's another good trick, right? Your partner, you can take the bricks from their house and the good bricks from your house, and you build a house together from the best bricks, so true. So believe in yourself and go and get the skills. Go and get those skills to back up the desires that you have. Because, I went and did all sorts of different courses. I was always out there trying to learn more. It's very important to do that.
Absolutely. Such wonderful and practical recommendations, Helen. So, all right. So thank you for joining us in this insightful episode with Helen, where we explored the intersection of intuition, recruitment, and diversity, equity, and inclusion. Helen's journey from her childhood experiences to her current role as a leader, a coach, and advocate highlights the importance of embracing our unique perspectives, and trusting our gut feelings in both personal and professional settings. We hope you found her tips for cultivating intuition and navigating the complexities of feeling like a misfit as inspiring as I did. And if you enjoyed this conversation, please subscribe to our podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube. Leave us a review and share it with your network. Remember, embracing our individuality and intuition can lead to profound personal growth and a more inclusive world. So until the next time, keep thriving and celebrate your uniqueness.
Thanks, everybody.